So we're back for one final video, basically a wrap-up of the 2023-2024 NFL season, and this will not be an analysis of the Super Bowl or anything like that. Probably going to be a rambling video to some extent, but mostly we're going to talk about, frankly, the point of this channel's existence and why we even did this whole exercise of picking every single game, and at the very end, a little bit of Madden stuff that probably only a few of you care about anyway, which is why it's going to be at the end. So, by getting our Super Bowl pick correct last week, we ended up 8-5 through the playoffs and 180 and 105 on the entire season, which is a nice round number. But what was the entire point of picking all 285 games, including the playoffs? I just wanted to prove to myself that I at least have some basis of knowledge when I talk about football on live streams or in any setting like that, or even just talking to friends and such in conversations. So did I accomplish that? I would say 180 and 105 is decent. It's about a 63% correct, pick percentage. Is that good? It's comparable to a team winning 11 out of 17 games. So, like the 11-6 Chiefs that then won the Super Bowl. So, when putting it in that perspective, by the way, that's 64%, 11-6. I do think that's pretty decent. I Googled, and just keep in mind, I didn't do a lot of research here, but I Googled how often Vegas is right, meaning the betting market. And for the money line odds, that's just straight up. When the odds are minus 115 or better, it's about a 66.5 winning percentage. Keep in mind, that's not every game. Closer odds games that are more of a toss-up aren't calculated in that stat, so that actually does make me feel pretty good. Here's the thing though. For years, especially when I was younger and had nothing to do on Sunday mornings, I watched analysts pick games on pregame shows and just thought, I could get that many right. I would see their records, from week to week or for the entire season, and, maybe being somewhat naive, thought I could do that well. So that, along with proving what I just talked about to myself, was why I ultimately did this. Make a game pick for every single game, post it online here on this channel, make myself accountable to truly see, would I be able to pick games as well as NFL analysts? And I want to make a very, very clear side note here. I am not saying I know as much, and especially not saying I know more football than any NFL analyst out there. This is these guys' jobs. That is not the point of this video. We'll get into the very specific point as we go along. So one show I watch, and I watch a lot, is Pro Football Talk. They also do a weekly pick show where they pick every single game and post the episodes to YouTube, so that makes it really easy to compare because it is here on YouTube. Mike Florio, the host, he has been in the football media space for over 20 years, and Chris Sims, obviously the son of former Super Bowl MVP Phil Sims and was a former quarterback himself. Now, regardless of what you might think about either of them or their opinions, there's no denying that they live and breathe NFL football. I should also note, I watch their show, therefore likely I will have similar opinions, and that's worth noting when it comes to comparisons. But I wanted to choose their picks record kind of as a comparison because, again, it is posted on YouTube here and not lost in space somewhere like pregame shows and stuff like that. And ultimately, I ended up with just a slightly better record than both. So I'm showing the regular season records here because I don't think they put the playoff records on screen. If I calculated correctly, I was one game ahead of Florio and maybe a couple of games ahead of Sims. Again, not really the point. I also checked with CBS experts. Better than half, worse than half, but right in the same general vicinity as all of them. So what is the point of me showing you all this stuff? Why am I comparing records to other shows and all that sort of stuff? Frankly, it's twofold. One, the NFL is just inherently unpredictable. If a random fan, that being me, can predict games with roughly the same level of accuracy as experts, it's probably not super wise to bet on games. And I do it anyway, I should say that too, but that was really eye-opening for me, honestly, to see how similar it was, whether it was Pro Football Talk, whether it was the CBS experts. All of the records, really, were in the same general vicinity, and I think that speaks to a couple of things. One, I think it speaks to the parity and just the true nature of off-season optimism with NFL football. You really can have a team of destiny type of run. The margin between the best team and the worst team is it's extremely thin. It comes down to the right play call, the right timing for an effort play just paying off and maybe making a big splash. Obviously, the bounce of a ball, flags, interpretations of rules, I mean human error. So much goes into the difference between a win and a loss on any given Sunday or Thursday or Monday or Saturday or whatever other day they play games on. I think we have a Friday game coming up in the 2024 season. So, I think it speaks to that, and I think it speaks to when it comes to picking games. Pretty much anybody can pick the favorite or the expected winner. I mentioned the Vegas moneyline odds earlier. That winning percentage, the percentage we got, the percentage on these other shows, it's all right around like 62 to 66%. What really matters is picking the upsets and being able to determine, when is an upset going to happen. That is basically what makes the difference in any of these game picks and the records at the end of the year. I should also note, I never looked, maybe other than like 2 or 3 games, at the Vegas odds. I just picked without considering the odds, and I think that actually helped. But I think that's it when it comes to football games, and especially when you're trying to pick them or make bets on them. Anybody can pick the easy ones. It's the coin flip games, and it's those ones that sometimes maybe the better team doesn't win. Maybe a coaching matchup or something like that. Even though on paper a team should win, picking the times that they're not going to win and their opponent gets that upset, that's really, I think, the biggest factor in all of this. And this is why I love NFL football. And of course, obviously, you gotta love it to sit here and make 285 game picks over the course of, I guess that would be like 21 weeks. You just can't predict it. It's why the games are played on grass or turf, and that's another conversation. Probably shouldn't be played on turf, but anyway, and not played on paper with stats. It's the fun of rooting for a team that maybe isn't slated to win. That chance they pull off a playoff run for the ages. It just brings us back time and time again, glued to the TV screen for 3 hours or maybe far more if you watch other teams' games every single week. I just thought this exercise throughout the entire year was really fun, and it was, like I said, really eye-opening to look at it at the very end of the season and just see how similar all the records were. I did think, I mentioned Pro Football Talk and that I watched their show and probably would therefore have similar opinions, and maybe that would subconsciously form my opinion about whether or not a team was going to win a game. Looking back on it, and especially comparing with like the CBS experts, I don't think that had much to do with it. I think it really is just when you pick an upset or when you pick a coin flip game the right way. I think what I'm trying to say is it's not at all an exact science, and no amount of experience in the game, or other than maybe injury knowledge and stuff, no amount of knowledge about what's going on can really help you determine what's going to happen on the field. It's the upset games and the coin flip games. That's what everything comes down to. And I just thought that was, really interesting information. When you watch, whether it's a pregame show or a show on YouTube or NFL Network or anywhere else, you expect that the opinions are going to be, so much more informed than what you could have. I think that is true. But as far as the outcomes go, they're still played on the field, and you truly can't predict it. So that is pretty much everything I wanted to say in terms of the wrap-up for the season, and in terms of the Madden stuff. The game that you've been watching as B-roll is going to be my last game of Madden for the year. I am officially retiring from Madden. As much fun as it's been, and as great of B-roll footage as it's been for these picks videos, this is going to be the last game. So I thought we'd do a little team tour before we wrap up. I'm not going to name every single player, we'll just kind of hit the highlights. What I will say is this is a Steelers themed team. There are chemistries, and we have 51 out of 50, so as many players as needed to get the maximum chemistry boost for anybody that maybe isn't familiar with the game. Every non-Steeler on this team is a free card. Other than that, all Steeler players or Steeler chemistries like this Ronnie Stanley, that I'm really not going to get into the weeds with stuff like this, but basically AFC North captain can have all the AFC North chemistries. So a couple of favorites, obviously Marquise Pouncey, we've got Heath Miller. I may have been trying to force feed him the ball in this game and therefore didn't play as well as we could have. We have the Pastronaut, Jalen Warren, Hines Ward, pretty cool one. Obviously Pickens over there. The defense is, I think, where we've got the best kind of setup, and that's the one thing that I got really proud of at the end of the year. And now, of course, we're retiring from the game, but the cornerbacks, we've got Mel Blount, Cam Sutton, Steven Nelson, Pat Pete over here, and then Joey Porter Jr. is our 5th corner at this stage. It's just kind of, that's the one reason I've been competitive, I think, at all in these games. The Steeler chemistries ended up with really good cornerbacks. Also, the one year, I don't know how many times Gary Anderson has been in Madden, but the one year I happened to play, basically the best kicker in the game, he was a Steeler kicker for a very long time. But I wanted to just quickly do a little tour of the team just so you guys could see it as we are going to wrap up. And I did want to get you better gameplay footage. Here's the thing though. Head-to-head broke. Like, I wanted to get to one final Super Bowl and wrap up the year with that, because I think the gameplay that you're watching, the team's the same except Patrick Peterson hadn't been released yet. You're only supposed to be able to play, like, 8 games total. You can see on the right, current record 10-0. 8-0 would get you a Super Bowl win. It just won't go to the Super Bowl. I'm just stuck. So, we're stuck with the gameplay you got. And I do think, on that note, that's going to do it for this video. Maybe we'll come back around the draft. Maybe we'll do draft content. I have no idea what the current plan is, but it was a really fun season. It was cool to see in the end how everything worked out and like comparing to other records and stuff. And I really do feel like, especially because I do just for fun, not to make any kind of money, not that I ever do anyway, but betting on games, I'm not saying it's going to make me stop, because it is fun to have a little skin in the game, especially for, you know, if you don't have any rooting interest. But what I do think is I'm going to be a little bit more careful about how I pick games, because just looking at it, I don't think any amount of knowledge or anything ultimately matters. I think it's just the bounce of a ball, a call here and there, stuff like that. And I did think that was good information to see for the end of the year. But anyway, that is going to do it for this video. As always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.